We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Israeli military begins limited, localized and targeted raids against Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon. Yemen's Houthis have warned the group will escalate operations in response to Israeli attacks. Devastating Hurricane Helene leaves 118 dead. Homeland Security Chief says toll could hit 600. President Biden pledges to aid victims as long as it takes. Will visit affected region on Wednesday.
Is that it looks like there could be as many as 600 lost lives, but we don't have any confirmation of that.
Dutch ex-premier Mark Rute is set for NATO top job as conflicts mar Europe and West Asia to take over as Secretary-General from Jens Stoltenberg at NATO headquarters in Brussels. India's Jammu and Kashmir votes in the third and final phase of elections. Over 3.9 million voters to decide fate of 415 candidates in 40 assembly constituencies. Bolivia declares wildfires ravaging eastern parts since June as national disaster, while California line fire burning since early September flares up over the weekend and prompts new evacuations. Well, on to the details now. Israeli military said it has started limited, localized and targeted raids against Hezbollah targets in the border areas of southern Lebanon. The IDF, in a statement on social media platform X early on Tuesday, said the troops backed by airstrikes and artillery launched ground raids a few hours ago, targeting military group Hezbollah in villages close to the border. The statement said the IDF is operating according to a methodological plan set out by the General Staff and the Northern Command, which IDF soldiers have trained and prepared for in recent months. The statement further reads, Operation Northern Arrows will continue according to the situational assessment and in parallel to combat in Gaza and in other arenas. Meanwhile, the United States said Israel has already informed about the ground operations in South Lebanon. Talking to reporters, U.S. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller said that they have discussed reports of ground operations, and Israel has told Washington they are, at this time, limited operation focused on Hezbollah infrastructure near the border with Lebanon.
We have been in conversations. They have been informing us about a number of operations. I've seen reports about ground operations. We've had some conversations with them about that. They have, at this time, told us that those are limited operations focused on Hezbollah infrastructure near the border, but we're in continuous conversations with them about it.
Earlier, Israel's army on Monday published a video showing forces preparing for the next phases of combat. The army video showed Israeli tanks driving and firing the army's Northern Command commander as well. Major General Ori Gordon leading a meeting with other officers. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant told local council heads in northern Israel that the next phase of the conflict along Lebanon's southern border would begin soon and support the aim of bringing home Israelis who have fled Hezbollah rockets during nearly a year of conflict. Meanwhile, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu about recent developments in West Asia. In a tweet, he said, and I quote, "Terrorism has no place in our world. It is crucial to prevent regional escalation and ensure the safe release of all hostages. India is committed to supporting efforts for an early restoration of peace and stability." And Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered the conscription of 133,000 new servicemen in Russia's autumn draft. As per Kremlin decree published on Monday, Moscow will carry out the draft of citizens aged 18 to 30 years who are not in the reserve and are subject to conscription in accordance with the federal law. The head of Russia's conscription office, Vice Admiral Vladimir Smilyansky, said that the terms for the conscript remains the same, that is 12-month service in military units. The draft will start on October 1st and goes until the end of the year. Putin in September ordered the Russian army to be increased by 180,000 troops to 1.5 million active servicemen. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the situation on the front line of the conflict against Russia was very difficult. Referring to a more than 2.5-hour meeting with top commanders, he added Ukraine's forces had to do everything they could over the autumn period. It was the second time in less than a week that Zelensky referred to the need to act quickly in the coming months in terms of military action. Russian forces have also been advancing slowly for months further north with the aim of capturing the entire Donbas region. And former Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rute takes over as NATO boss on Tuesday. At a ceremony at NATO headquarters in Brussels, Rute will take over as Secretary General from Jens Stoltenberg. He's charged with holding the Western military alliance together with the Russia-Ukraine conflict at a critical moment and a pivotal U.S. presidential election approaching. NATO officials and diplomats expect Rute to maintain Stoltenberg's priorities at the 32-member alliance, rallying support for Ukraine, pushing NATO countries to spend more on defense and keeping the U.S. engaged in European security. Rute stepped down as Dutch Premier this year after a record 14 years in the job. Haiti marked another grim milestone as the number of people facing acute hunger has now reached half of the country's population. As Haiti continues to grapple with a significant security crisis, 5.4 million people struggle to feed themselves and their families every day. Out of these, 2 million are in a grip of emergency level of hunger, facing extreme food shortages, acute malnutrition and high disease levels. Over 6,000 are classified as being catastrophic hunger category, the highest level of food insecurity, representing one of the highest proportions of acutely food insecure people in any crisis worldwide. And some weather-related updates now. First up on Hurricane Helene, which has left a trail of destruction, with communities across the southeastern United States still struggling with emergency conditions in its aftermath. Search and rescue operations are underway in North Carolina, and supplies are being flown in by air by small mountain towns that have been cut off by everything due to conditions like downed trees. Meanwhile, terming Helene as a history-making storm, U.S. President Joe Biden said that he would travel to North Carolina on Wednesday after the state was hit by devastating floods. Biden also said that he might ask Congress to return to Washington for a special session to pass supplemental aid funding.
I'm going to North Carolina on Wednesday, planned now. We're going to be landing in Raleigh for a briefing with the Emergency Operations Center. And I'll then do an aerial tour of Asheville. It's too much for me in terms of interrupting access to help there to land and to survey the damage other through the air. And then it's my plan to travel to Georgia and Florida as soon as possible after that.
Well, the death toll from the devastating storm has climbed to 118 on Monday, though U.S. Homeland Security Advisor Liz Sherwood Randall claimed that there could be as many as 600 deaths due to Hurricane Helene. The death toll already has topped over 100 in the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee and Virginia, and officials fear more bodies will be discovered.
I'll just say on the death count you asked about. So the current data we have is that it looks like there could be as many as 600 lost lives. But we don't have any confirmation of that. We know there are 600 who are either lost or unaccounted for. And so that work is ongoing. I'll caution you, because we've seen this before, those numbers vary widely.
Well, flooding and landslides triggered by heavy rains in Nepal over the weekend have killed 200 people, even as rescue efforts intensified on Monday. Nepal's Home Ministry said 209 people had been killed across the country, with another 29 still missing. Most deaths took place in Kathmandu, where large parts of the city were submerged. Meanwhile, all highways out of Kathmandu remain blocked due to landslides, but workers managed to temporarily clear the Prithvi highway. Prime Minister Khadga Prasad Oli has called an emergency meeting to address the crisis. Also in India's Bihar, water level in overflowing rivers receded on Monday, but the flood situation in as many as 16 districts remained grim. As many as 12 teams of NDRF and 22 teams of SDRF have already been deployed in different flood-affected districts of the state for relief and rescue operations. The State Disaster Management Department is working round the clock for protection of embankments and levee, and has also released contact numbers of officials for immediate help. Well, the California line fire, which has been burning since early September, flared up over the weekend and prompted new evacuations. Residents in the San Bernardino Seven Oaks area were ordered to evacuate on Sunday. The fire has now consumed 43,000 acres and is 80% contained, according to the San Bernardino National Forest Division of the Forest Service. Well, Bolivia officially declared a national disaster on Monday due to the devastating wildfires affecting eastern Bolivia. This measure comes after weeks of requests from local authorities and citizens demanding more forceful intervention to confront the environmental crisis, which has already consumed more than 7 million hectares of forest alone. Authorities have requested international assistance as they contend with 72 active fires that have scorched 3.8 million hectares of land. Bolivian government announced the measure, citing severe air pollution and a sanitary danger due to the fires.
We have approved this decree 5253, which is the declaration of national disasters, so that we can activate everything possible to combat these fires, which have been worrying us for the last 3 months, in which we have been fighting them.
While 2 men were killed after wildfire in central Greece near Corinth, 140 kilometers west of Athens. The fire broke out on Sunday and spread rapidly due to strong winds, which made it difficult to control. Hundreds of firefighters, 15 vehicles, 7 water bombers and 3 helicopters were deployed to fight the blaze. The fire have already forced the evacuation of several villages. While firefighters work to control blazes in Ecuador's pine forest, a team of 38 firefighters carried out fire control measures in a pine forest near the Cotopaxi volcano in Ecuador, creating fire breaks and dampening the forest floor. So far this year, wildfires have recorded 3,300 forest fires that have destroyed nearly 38,000 hectares of vegetation. The Andean country has had almost no rain for almost 3 months, making it tinder dry. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. Jamaican Prime Minister on a 4-day visit to India to solidify bilateral ties in a range of key areas, including trade and investment. To meet growing demand for cloud computing in Southeast Asia, Google plans huge investment in Thailand. And third-ranked Carlos Alcaraz will take on Daniil Medvedev in the semi-finals of China Open.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lapakshi Khurana, and moving on, Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness on Monday began a 4-day visit to India to solidify bilateral ties in a range of key areas, including trade and investment. This is his first visit to India and also the first ever bilateral visit of a Prime Minister of Jamaica to India. During the visit, Prime Minister Holness will hold delegation-level talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and call on President and Vice President of India. A number of MOUs are expected to be signed during the visit, giving a fillip to bilateral cooperation. India and Jamaica share strong historical and cultural linkages reflected in their shared colonial past, values of democracy and freedom, and passion for cricket. And Jammu and Kashmir is voting today for the third and final phase of its assembly elections to decide the electoral fate of 415 candidates. Adequate security arrangements have been put in place in the poll-bound areas to ensure terror-free and peaceful polling. Over 39.18 lakh voters are expected to exercise their franchise at 5,060 polling stations in this crucial phase, covering 40 assembly segments in Jammu, Udhampur, Samba and Kathua in Jammu region and Baramulla, Bandipora and Kupwara in North Kashmir. The voter turnout was robust in the earlier phases, with 61.38% participation recorded in the first phase on September 18th and 57.31% in the second phase on September 26th, while counting of votes will be held on the 8th of October. And India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo in Washington, D.C. During the meeting, both the leaders discussed semiconductors, ICET, critical minerals, trusted partnerships, and supply chain resilience. Both committed in boosting tech collaboration and economic partnership of two nations. Committed to reformed multilateralism, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar concluded an extremely fruitful week at the 79th session of United Nations General Assembly. During his visit, the minister interacted with 75 foreign ministers and representatives, participated in 8 plurilateral summits. He also delivered India's statement at the 79th UNGA. And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. Superstar Rajinikanth has been admitted to the Apollo Hospital in Chennai on Monday late at night after he complained of severe stomach pain. Hospital sources have confirmed that the 73-year-old superstar's condition is stable. The Hand-to-Hand Fighting Sport Federation of India and the Hand-to-Hand Fighting Sport Association of Odisha organized an invitational National Hand-to-Hand Fighting Sport Training Workshop in Bhubaneswar. The workshop was intended for athletes selected to compete in the World Hand-to-Hand Fighting Sport Championship in Bukhara, Uzbekistan and the World Cup. The Women and Child Development Department of Odisha marked the launch of State-Level Nutrition Month 2024 with a celebration at the State Women and Child Institute in Bhubaneswar. The event emphasized the vital role played by grassroots workers in the fight against malnutrition. Artists are preparing the clay idols of Hindu goddess Durga at workshops ahead of Durga Puja festival. The festival is celebrated to mark Durga's victory over Mahishasur. This year festival will be celebrated from October 3rd till the 13th of October. And on to some business news now. Google plans to invest $1 billion to build a digital infrastructure in Thailand. The move aims to meet growing demand for cloud computing in Southeast Asia and would support 14,000 jobs in the kingdom. Google's investment comes after Microsoft announced in May that it would create Thailand's first data center region to boost cloud and artificial intelligence infrastructure. Google's expansion in Thailand will add $4 billion to the kingdom's GDP by 2029 and support 14,000 jobs between 2025 and 2029. And with a strike deadline looming, the Union for 45,000 dock workers and the group representing Eastern Gulf Coast ports have exchanged wage offers, leaving a ray of hope that a deal can be reached without a major work stoppage. In a statement, the U.S. Maritime Alliance, which represents 36 ports from Maine to Texas, said that both sides have moved from their previous positions. The alliance said it also asked the union to extend the current contract. The Maritime Alliance represents the major shipping lines, all of which are foreign-owned, as well as terminal operators and port authorities. The ports involved include the Port of New York and New Jersey, the nation's third largest port by volume of cargo handled, but it also includes port with other specialities. And in sports, first up, cricket records tumbled as India launched a batting blitz to overtake Bangladesh's first innings total of 233 in 28 overs, injecting fresh life into the rain-marred second test in Kanpur on Monday. On day 4, Rohit Sharma's men quickly bowled out Bangladesh and then unleashed a batting mayhem, scoring at a rate which is unprecedented in Test cricket. India reached 50 runs in 3 overs, 110.1 and 224.2. The fastest ever by a Test team in their bid to force a result in a Test which has lost more than 2 days' play to bad weather. The host eventually declared at 285 for 9 and then reduced Bangladesh to 26 for 2 at the stumps. And third-ranked Carlos Alcaraz will take on Daniil Medvedev in the semi-finals of China Open on Tuesday. The Spaniard delivered a high-quality 7-5, 6-2 victory against Karen Khachanov to book his last 4 spot at the ATP 500 in Beijing. Alcaraz had advanced to the China Open semi-finals for the second straight year. Meanwhile, fifth-ranked Russian Daniil Medvedev beat Flavio Cobolli of Italy 6-2, 6-4 to reach the semi-finals. Medvedev is still looking for his first title of the year. And the Eiffel Tower in Paris decks out in pink to mark the start of the annual Pink October campaign to raise awareness about breast cancer screening. This month-long initiative aims to raise awareness about breast cancer and the importance of early detection through the screening.
Ich habe auch gerade gefilmt, als es Purple geworden ist.
All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world with the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.